they had an idea to build a little business or start a business. Well, a couple $1,000 would go a long way to get that seed money, to get that idea off and running. So the idea is, I take that $1 million, make it a larger amount by investment, and then by having the money come back in through repayment, that core $1 million remains in perpetuity. And I got a snappy name, Funds for the Future. And what I see is that it's funds for the future, for the future today, improvements today. So this would benefit a lot more people than any one single project or a complete dispersal of that $1 million in other things where it doesn't have an ongoing life. And that idea came to me, and I told my wife, you know, I'm just full of ideas. And she agreed, I'm full of it. All right, number 2 was you need a new pool. What would you do to ensure the city's financial stability in that pool project? Well, pool is a close place to my heart. I like the ability for exercise. I have not been able to use it lately, but I know it's in terrible shape. Nobody can say that pool can be fixed. Not for the uses that it needs to be put. I believe that the process that we went through to get the information regarding what the people want in that pool was a year-long process of surveys and workshops and town hall type meetings. However, when the presentation came to City Council, the slide was up there and gave us the 3 versions of the pool, the basic, the Taj Mahal, and then the consensus pool. And, you know, that's good, and it was, I think, $27.5 million. And then we go to the second slide, and the second slide says 63% of the people don't want to pay for that pool with real estate taxes. And, well, we went ahead and we passed the requirement to list it as a bond issue on advice of the City Council that we had to decide it that night. And I expressed my concern regarding that because I had wanted to have a cafeteria type presentation. Do we need all of these elements in the pool? Does it all make sense? However, again, it was a timing issue. Time was of the essence. And I communicated my disappointment to the mayor that I didn't ever want to be put in that position before in regards to a time was of the essence without knowing it before the council meeting. I like to make my decisions by getting all of the facts, analyzing the facts, talking to citizens, and then coming to a decision. And generally what I do is at the end of that decision-making process, I document it, I publish it on the internet or social media to show what my thinking is and gain reaction. Many times I'll do that to gain reaction before I make the decision to get further comments. I think I'm the only person on City Council that has taken those steps in the decision-making process. Community engagement plays a critical role in addressing issues that impact the well-being of the community. Do you think the city government notification and engagement systems are adequate? Not really. We've made some really great strides with our new public information officer. There's a project underway that was mentioned before regarding the website update. Lisa LaPlante has also issued a frequent BC Insider newsletter to keep everyone informed, and she's been very proactive. But in terms of communication, you know, a long time ago, and I was still a ham radio operator, but as a teenage boy, I learned what communication is. And communication the first thing you do as a ham radio operator, you turn the radio on and you listen. You listen, then you make a contact and call out and transmit. That's communication. If you're only transmitting or broadcasting, you're not communicating in the fullest extent. And I think one of our shortfalls is that we don't listen enough. And in that regard, getting back to the pool, I've been listening to the community. I've been up at the senior center. I've had these coffee sessions on Saturday, regular ones, and I've gotten feedback. And I decided from that feedback, the thing is, I represent youth. And what I've heard is that we should reconsider that $40 million bond issue. And so I requested that to be put on the agenda for the next council meeting. And it may be a contentious thing, and it may be a negative thing for me, but I believe that people should be heard and we should work out some of these things. So my estimation, we should have had a workshop to determine what alternate types of funding could take place besides tax revenue. Our existing pool was paid completely by outside funding. It was paid by a philanthropic foundation, it was paid partly by a local business enterprise, and it was paid by an NGO, which is the BCCA. They paid for that pool. There was no city funds, no tax funds that went into that pool when it was built. It was a long time ago. How do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in our city? Well, one of the things I did immediately upon being elected is I engaged these Saturday coffee class sessions. And sometimes one or two people would show up, sometimes we'd have a dozen people show up. We even had the county commissioner come on a Saturday, Mr. Gibson. And the thing that turns out, I learned more from those sessions than I was trying to educate the folks that came. I learned more from those folks in terms of how they feel about their city and our city, Boulder City. And so that has gone into my decision-making process. If I was elected, I would, as a mayor, I would establish a policy that each councilman undertake a town hall in an area of their expertise or their interest. In fact, I actually made that challenge last year, and to their credit, both these gentlemen have taken me up on it, and well, this man is taking me up on it at some point, for sure, I hope, to have a town hall, to have a point to go back and forth in a non-contentious environment. Quite honestly, the city council hall, when you come to do public comments, you realistically maybe just as well go outside and yell at the clouds. And because the open meeting law prohibits us to have that interplay. Well, as long as we don't have three councilmen disputing or coming to a decision, we can have a non-confrontational arrangement with our citizens to gain their input directly. The next item was, do you think our historic downtown area is healthy and successful? Yeah, I think this last weekend was pretty evident of that with the Damn Short Film Festival appearing. The Damn Short Film Festival, every one of those venues was crowded, filled to capacity, and frequently that's what happens on the weekends here in Boulder City. Yeah, we have a healthy downtown, but we have to be proactive in maintaining that atmosphere and the quality of government services for those businesses, not only downtown, but all along Nevada Way, all along Boulder City Parkway. What's more important for the city right now? Building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing, expanding, or better utilizing our existing homes and storefronts? Well, actually, all those are equally important. If we're to retain the unique small-town character of Boulder City, we have to have some growth. We have to have a modest amount of growth. And the growth that's underway right now is within our controlled growth ordinance, which very wisely was set up 40 years ago, and it's served its purpose. It's kept Boulder City, Boulder City. And that leads to the next one, do you support the growth ordinance? Yes, I do, and I don't see any reason to change it. It has worked very well. I don't, as mentioned before, there's no time that we've gotten to 120 since the 90s in terms of the limit, in terms of the housing being built. And the new development that's taking place at the Storybook Homes is well within the 30 years per home allotment that's permitted in that ordinance. Interesting, I don't know if you've gone down to take a look at it, but although the grand opening has not yet occurred, the models are actually open to view, so it'll be interesting to see, get some reaction for those houses down there. Do you think we rely too heavily on solar leases? Absolutely not. There's an old saw, it's make hay while the sun shines. And the sun shines and money falls out of the sky for us. And we have a resource, our climate, our location. Many people don't realize why those power plants are down there. There's a number of switch yards, infrastructure that the Bureau of Reclamation, that the utilities in California have built that allow for the connection to the dam and to Southern California. That's the reason why we're going to have a high voltage DC line put in from a Wyoming wind farm that's going to terminate down there in the valley in the future. It is an asset to the city that very few other cities enjoy. I feel we need to exploit it to the max. There's a limit to that. And over the last couple of months, there was a move to lease land to basically cover a portion of the dry lake bed with solar panels. And I objected to that, and as it turned out, the company that put that forward withdrew their request to use that land. Because really, in a way, it's part of our historic preservation, that dry lake bed. Many people in Boulder City can tell a story about how they taught their son or daughter how to drive, or how to use a motorcycle, or whatever. I know I have that perspective, and I'm sure others do as well. We have to preserve it. Do you think we're prepared to if those leases expired in 5 years? Well, honestly, the likelihood of that happening is very, very small. Although we've had one instance in the past where one of the utility companies that had a not lease option decided that they weren't going to pursue the lease option. But because of the fact that in the negotiation, the original negotiation, they committed to pay the city $5.2 million if they didn't go forward. Well, they didn't go forward. We got the $5.2 million, and that paid off our debt to the Boulder Creek Golf Course. So the fact is that all those companies are big companies with deep pockets. We've protected ourselves in the leasehold agreements. Now, honestly, I can't say it never could happen, but if it did happen, we've got a lot bigger problems than having our solar revenue reduced, because most likely it would be some type of national catastrophe. And those kinds of things, honestly, you can't foresee, you can't plan for. So again, make hay while the sun shines, make money while the sun shines. Let's see, my script here. Do we need backup revenue? Well, I don't think we need backup revenue, we need additional revenue. And some sources, and again, this would have to be with citizen involvement, citizen discussion, there's been talk of how we can expand our airport to have greater profitability, because right now, effectively, it's running at a break-even point. We've got too many businesses, enterprise funds, that are operating at the break-even point, which probably need some, in fact, one of the things that is encouraging is a new management scheme for our municipal golf courses. We expect to see profitability increasing with that recent move. You know, in our past, we made some bad decisions. And I think one of our problems is we haven't come to reality and kind of haven't admitted that we made some bad decisions in the past. The golf course, the Boulder Creek Golf Course comes to mind. But if you remember back in the day, we were going to become the golf course nirvana of the United States. We were going to have 6 golf courses. And so 2 were built, Cascato, private one, and Boulder Creek, second. But the economy went upside down. And, oh, by the way, in order to get the water for those golf courses, we had to commit to a raw water line for about $30 million, which we are still paying $2.2 million per year for that questionable decision. Sure, a time when you changed your vote based on public comment during the city council meeting. Well, I, like Mr. McManus, searched my memory and really could not come up with an instance where I changed my mind at a council meeting. Mainly because that's not the way I make decisions. I like to research. I'm trained as an engineer. I'm trained to analyze, get the base data, analyze it, come to a conclusion, test the conclusion, then reanalyze it. And that usually can't be done in the space of a few minutes. And because of that, in my business experience, one thing I learned very early is you don't like to be blindsided with information at the last minute. Likewise, whoever you're negotiating with across the table in business doesn't like to be blindsided either. So preparation, research is important, and also a time to cool off and think, is this the right decision for the city? Is it the right decision that the citizens would approve? This is the way I work. The question of boarded up properties, and what would you do to change it? Well, in this particular case, there are basically 2 boarded up properties that are continued eyesore, the Broader building and the Scratch House building, which are private property. And one of the things that I know that early on that we explored the possibility of getting an estimate and perhaps using RDA and other things. They were all scratched when the owner exerted his property rights and said, no, I don't want to do it. Now, as the mayor had intimated, there have been discussions with the property owner, and I think if there's a new sheriff in town, those discussions can be carried further and probably to fruition. I honestly think the man is looking for an apology, and I don't know if that's legally possible, but I think given the circumstances, he's probably due one. How would you strengthen the historic properties in our city? Well, one of the things we're going to be voting on is this application to become a CLG community, which will allow us to have access to state monies and potential federal monies for historic preservation. It's interesting talking to Mr. Goya, who's the historic preservation chairman, that we were this much close to getting that done. All we have to do is make some minor changes, and we're doing that. So this is one of the big things in the future for us in order for historic preservation. The Hoover Dam Gateway project. Yeah, like the mayor had mentioned, I don't know how I brought this question up. How do you drive a stake through the heart of this thing? Because it keeps reappearing, and people, and it goes back to a central problem that we have, and I don't think we really admitted to it, is for a large number of people in our town, they have lost faith in their city government. They feel that the council does not listen to them. They feel that we're going to do whatever we want to do, and to heck with you. And I'm being frank, that is a feeling that ripples through the town. And so we ran into these situations where, again, the Hoover Dam Gateway project, even though back 2 years ago, that was one of the first things we voted on, and I wrote an essay on it, Crossroads at the Crossroads. That's a property down there is a very hot property because it's the newest interchange in the whole country for interstate development. So you can imagine with these national firms, they want to get in there and develop. Well, the interesting thing is, Mr. Garcia, who was a consultant that did the report, and it was a very well-done report. They paid $167,000 for it. But what the report showed was, it's kind of ironic, at the end of the day, the report basically listed the reasons why we couldn't do this project. That it would cost so much money in investment in infrastructure, and they'd even then, in the 10th year, we would have a loss of like $93 million. So the report I thought was valuable because it basically showed that this is not the plan for the city at this time. Now, maybe in the 23rd or 22nd century, there will be a plan, and I think eventually you're going to see a development at that crossroads, but not until the city's development goes out to that area. So it's, again, leapfrog development, it's in the master plan, we don't want to have it, and that was a prime example of a leapfrog development project. Incidentally, there, likewise, that essay for the pool and also the essay for the Hoover Dam Gateway project is posted on the internet if you want to read it. And oh, by the way, in going through these questions, I realized at the end of being the third voice, that some of you would be tired of hearing the politicos voice their wonderful positions on these issues. And so, in order to save time for you, I have prepared a list of all the questions with all the correct answers. So here and here. So when you go back and decide who you're thinking about supporting, say, well, what did I say? Well, here it is, already typed out for you. So you can put your pens away and your notepads away, although I don't see too many people taking notes tonight. Our financial status. We live in a very enviable state at this point in the city. That all budgets, city budgets, have to be a balanced budget. So that means you come out with the money that you spent, the money that you're going to get as revenue. It's really like a big beanbag. And if you push in on one side by reducing the revenue, you're going to get an opposite reaction somewhere else, so you've got to compensate for that. So it's a closed system. And if you follow the city council meetings, you'll see that and tomorrow there will be one of these items where they could be getting a $25,000 grant for our animal control center to improve elements within our animal control center that Ann Nevitt is in charge of. She was awarded, or we were awarded a $25,000 grant. Now we got the grant, we're getting the grant, now we have to change our budget to show that revenue was increased, where are we going to spend it? Now in that case, it's dedicated to certain activity up at the shelter. Now again, the Hoover Dam Gateway project, what would the impact be on our community? Well, maybe in the 22nd century there would be an impact, but it's not going to happen in the foreseeable future to have that project go through. Let's see. Oh, the other thing regarding our finances. I think most people would agree that our financial reporting and financial systems were less than adequate prior to our new finance director, Diane Peltier, coming on board. And what she's done is a wonderful job of taking a rather complicated and boring set of numbers, and instead of handing out a spreadsheet, has produced some very nice booklets that show in pie charts where does the money come from and where does it go. And most people don't realize there's actually two funds. There's the general fund, the general operation fund, which does the day-to-day operations. But then there's the utility fund. And the utility fund is separate and actually larger than the general fund. So if you haven't seen those reports, they're available at City Hall. They're easy to read, easy to understand, and it was a great step forward. Here's another question that's interesting. Is the city headed in the right direction or the wrong direction? Well, honestly, I think when I ran for city council, I felt it was headed in the wrong direction. And that was one of the reasons I ran for city council. And at this point, I'd have to thank the BCCA for the endorsement for me and Mr. McManus, because I thought it was very important in our election be given a public voice for the people to say our views. But we were not going in the right way. We had a finance director that didn't meet the full requirements of a finance guy. We had an acting city manager, and we had a city manager before that, which was effectively fired. We had disruption in almost all of the top-level management of the city. The thing that we did, I think that was phenomenal, made a market change, was we hired a new city manager. And I was involved in that hiring process. And we had two finalists. I'll give you a little bit of input between those two differences. One of the finalists was a retired man who was a city manager in a small California town. And a very personable man, very, very good politician, very likable man. But at the end of the interview, I determined that, well, he's looking for a retirement job. Now, the other applicant, which is our current city manager, Mr. Alvin, very different, very, very aggressive. And in his resume, I noticed that he was a veteran. And he entered the service of the U.S. Air Force as an enlisted man. He retired from the Air Force as an officer. And you don't see that kind of a change on somebody who is a laid-back person. You see that person that is a go-getter. And what he has done is he has created a team, a new team, of almost all those top people to work all together in our direction. And this would account for the fact that the people that are actually in the workplace can see the difference in their management. In fact, in a little bit of a one-to-one interview on the streets with some of the linemen and so forth, they commented before in the old days that, gee, we wish this thing could be run like a business. Well, now Mr. Naila has actually got that message, and I believe the workmen at the line level have got a feeling that they're being listened to and they're being appreciated, and they're a part of a team. Now what has happened is that team concept has to be melded into our citizenry and the city council to work as a team. And we've got to be able to, again, listen to the people, react to the people, and do the people's work. So, in short, I do believe that with the majority of the folks, that our city is now on the right track. It doesn't say it's perfect, but it's on the right track. Let's see if I missed anything up here. Oh, the backup revenue, I can talk a little bit more about that. The airport, as I indicated, is a possible revenue builder. I'm talking to some of the people who have hangars there about what would they want to have on the airport to make it more attractive to additional people. And the biggest and most frequent answer was extend the runway. So I got a red flag. So what is that? I forget what the rules are. But the idea again is how you get to these things is ask your constituents. Again, my job is to represent you. My hope is that I can represent you as your new mayor. And my commitment is that I will give my all to that job. All of us love Boulder City. And it's really the decision of you. Who has done, who has made a commitment, who has basically kept their word when they were elected. And I feel very strongly that I've done all those things. And so tonight, I want to thank the BCCA for their past endorsement. And if you voted for me, I want to thank you for that vote. And I would extra likely like to tell you that I hope that you decide to vote for me in the primary coming up. So good evening, and thank you for coming. Again, the questions and the correct answers are here on the page.
Again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us tonight. Thank you all three candidates for joining us tonight as well and for answering those questions. And thank you to Glenn and the American Legion Hall for letting us have our event here tonight. We would ask that all three candidates remain here. They have 3 tables here with information that they can hand out. Please engage with them. Ask them any questions that they may not have been able to answer tonight, so that way you can make an informed decision. And we will be having a City Council candidate forum here at the American Legion Hall on February 25th, 2 weeks from tonight at 6:30, so please be sure to join us for